Number 8. Amber Gonzalez. 30-year-old Amber Gonzalez allegedly stole a cell phone from a cleaning cart at the Baymont Inn in Waukesha, Wisconsin on September the 14th of 2018. She was arrested shortly thereafter and taken to a holding cell at the Waukesha police station. Gonzalez was told that she needed to post bail for an outstanding warrant on a drug paraphernalia citation she'd been given the previous month, and that if she didn't have the money, she'd be transported to the county jail. Gonzalez's left hand was handcuffed to the wall during her detainment. Surveillance cameras from the holding cell captured the woman straining to slip her cuff by using her free hand. After repeated efforts, she was successful in sliding the steel restraint off the sleeve of her jumper. Gonzalez then grabbed her cell phone and escaped after finding a door which had a set of keys hanging on the handle. She fled the station and ran through nearby backyards to avoid police detection. Her escape was short-lived and marred by poor decision-making. Gonzalez returned to the Baymont Inn with a man who later admitted had paid her $80 to perform an intimate act on him. After receiving tips from the hotel staff, the authorities forced the room open and arrested the woman, taking her directly to the county jail. Aside from the initial theft, Gonzalez was charged for the escort services she'd offered, as well as with escape from police custody, a felony. Number 7. Columbia Correctional Institution. On April the 16th of 2020, inmates Thomas Deering and James Newman escaped from the Columbia Correctional Institution in Portage, Wisconsin. 36-year-old Deering and Newman, aged 45, had been convicted on charges that included kidnapping, theft, and assault. A wide-scale manhunt was launched, and about a day later, the two men sought refuge at Miss Carly's Homeless Center in Rockford, Illinois, over 100 miles away from the prison. The shelter's founder, Carly Rice, whom by her own admission had a lengthy criminal record, noticed they were both wearing typical prison garb consisting of thermal underwear tops and gray sweatpants. She then recognized Deering and Newman from their wanted posters, which a friend of hers from Wisconsin had previously shared on their social media. As a volunteer served the men cigarettes and coffee to stall their departure, Rice went to another room and alerted the police. The men were taken into custody without incident, and Rice was praised for her quick thinking by the authorities. According to a release from the Columbia County Sheriff's Office, Holly Marie Zimdahl was subsequently arrested and charged as a party to the crime of escape. The 46-year-old, a civilian kitchen worker at the prison, was accused of providing them with the various utensils they'd used to cut through steel fencing and jump over the razor wire. She initially maintained to have helped the inmates because they'd threatened to harm her daughter. Zimdahl was eventually found guilty and sentenced to 3 years of probation. Number 6. Lionel Clark and Joseph Cruz. On the evening of March the 9th of 2016, inmates Lionel Clark and Joseph Cruz escaped from a New Mexico Department of Corrections van during a fuel stop in the town of Artesia. 29-year-old Clark was a convicted armed robber who'd shot a law enforcement officer, and Cruz, aged 32, was a convicted murderer. The men picked their handcuffs and slipped out of the van with the authorities, not realizing they were missing until roughly 4 hours later. Cruz had been corresponding with flight attendant Patricia Petrushkin, aged 51, who'd allegedly told him that if he ever made it out of prison, she would help him. A few hours after the escape, Cruz called her and the woman revealed she was staying at the Hawthorne Suites in Albuquerque. The two fugitives traveled to the hotel and met with Petrushkin in her room. She gave them money, a cell phone, and a change of clothes for Clark. The Texas woman was later arrested in Houston and charged with harboring a fugitive. On May the 10th, the two inmates went to an apartment where Cruz's sister was staying but not renting. They were eventually met by the owner, who, unaware the men were wanted, demanded they left. Afterwards, as reported by the police, Clark met Michelle Abeta, a 40-year-old neighbor who invited him to stay with her. Cruz was subsequently arrested in Albuquerque after a brief foot chase. As reported by the authorities, Clark had told Abeta during their initial encounter that he'd escaped from prison, but she reportedly enjoyed his companionship. 2 days after she'd invited him to stay at her northeast Albuquerque apartment, Abeta called the police. Clark was taken into custody without incident, but the woman was also arrested and charged with harboring a fugitive. She explained her delay in alerting the police by claiming she'd first tried to calm Clark down. Number 5. Juan Ramirez Tijerina. In the summer of 2011, prison officers at a facility in Chetumal, Mexico, noticed that a woman was heading towards the exit while wheeling out a black suitcase that seemed bulky. They also noted that 19-year-old Maria Del Mar Ajona, who'd gone to the prison for a conjugal visit with her common-law husband, seemed nervous and had trouble pulling the suitcase. They stopped the woman and searched her property. Inside the suitcase, they found her husband, Juan Ramirez Tijerina, curled up in the fetal position. At the time, he was serving a 20-year sentence for a 2007 conviction for illegal weapons possession. The brazen but ill-fated escape attempt made headlines around the world. In the immediate aftermath, Arona was arrested and Tijerina was taken back to his cell, pending further charges. Number 4. Kenneth Burnham. Officers arrived at the Hamilton County Jail in Tennessee to pick up a prisoner named Glenn Taylor in August of 2013. Taylor was about to be released on bond, and after the name was called out, a correctional officer took the man who'd answered for further processing. The authorities noticed rather quickly that he looked nothing like the picture of the inmate they had on file. The man, later identified as 30-year-old inmate Kenneth Chad Burnham, insisted that he was in fact Taylor and signed the bond paperwork. Burnham, a white man, was soon confronted with the blatant reality of his ruse when it was revealed to him that the man scheduled for release was black. When asked why he'd lied to the authorities, Burnham claimed he was being dumb and that he wanted to escape. He was subsequently charged with both criminal impersonation and attempted escape. Number 3. Sidney da Cruz and Carlos Pereira. A prison guard at the Delegacia de Frutos jail in Curitiba, southern Brazil, noticed sudden movement while passing next to garbage bags that had been lined up for collection on one of the facility's corridors in August of 2012. The guard initially suspected it was a rat, but upon closer inspection, as he later told the country's record TV station, saw there were 2 inmates disguised as bags. 24-year-old Sidney da Cruz and Carlos Pereira, aged 18, had been serving sentences for car theft. Around lunchtime, they'd gotten into the bags along with various trash items, hoping they'd be picked up, dumped in a truck, and taken out of prison. Once their escape plan was foiled by the observant guard, Cruz and Pereira were transferred back to their cells and faced the possibility of their sentences being extended. Commenting on the case, the local police chief expressed his bewilderment at the situation, particularly how the grown men had expected someone to pick them up and not be discovered when the bags were made out of thin plastic. Today's topic was requested by Alexandra Samantha Ritchie, Esther Cavadia, and Moon. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Dennis Claude Carver. Career criminal Dennis Claude Carver, aged 45, had spent roughly 7 months of a 20-month larceny sentence when he escaped from a minimum security prison in Dallas in October of 2016. A maintenance worker, Carver was reported to have fled while working outside the prison perimeter's fence. In the aftermath, his 22-year-old daughter, Tanya Renee, met him at Cox Road by I-85 and drove into Kings Mountain. Both were subsequently taken into custody by law enforcement, but the details of their apprehension weren't released. Carver was placed into restrictive housing at Caldwell Correctional Center in Lenoir and was charged with felony escape from prison. His daughter faced a felony charge of accessory after the fact. Following her arrest, Tanya Renee maintained that she had no idea her father was an escapee upon meeting him and was under the impression he'd been given a home pass. Number 1. Clinton Correctional Facility escape. In 2015, Richard Matt and David Sweat were both spending lengthy prison sentences at the maximum security Clinton Correctional Facility in Dannemora, New York, after they'd each been convicted of murder. The former was serving 25 years to life for kidnapping, torturing, and hacksaw dismembering his former boss, while Sweat had been given a life sentence for the killing of a sheriff's deputy. On the morning of June the 6th, prison officials couldn't account for Matt and Sweat. An external breach was then found roughly 500 feet outside the prison wall, in what was subsequently compared to the escape from the Shawshank Redemption novella and film. The 2 inmates had dug a tunnel to freedom. They left behind a note which read, "Have a nice day," and featured a smiley face. The authorities found that they'd been aided in the escape plot by prison tailor Joyce Mitchell, then in her early 50s. The woman had reportedly been seduced by Matt and Sweat, as she'd allegedly passed secret notes to the latter professing her love, but had also been intimate with the former multiple times in the tailor shop. She smuggled hacksaw blades, chisels, and other tools into the prison by hiding them in frozen hamburger meat. Mitchell then passed the items to prison guard Gene Palmer, another accomplice, who then gave them to the inmates. Mitchell had agreed to act as a getaway driver and flee with Matt and Sweat, with whom she'd also talked about the possibility of them killing her husband, Lyle. The woman was supposed to meet Matt and Sweat on the outskirts of the prison, but ultimately backed away from the plan. Reportedly, after realizing she still loved her husband, she served 5 years in prison for her part in the escape plan and was conditionally released in 2020. Matt and Sweat's run at freedom only lasted a few weeks. On June the 26th, following a confrontation, the former was shot and killed by a US Border Patrol agent in Owl's Head, roughly 50 miles west of the prison. 2 days later, Sweat was shot twice and taken into custody by a New York State trooper near Constable. Thanks for watching. Would you rather be a fugitive from justice or spend a year in a minimum security prison? Let us know in the comment section below.